All right, so I need to move this up so you guys can see. But I can't hear people. Hey everybody, as you're scrolling by, just give me a minute to get set up here. Get these prompts showing up. We're just getting the show started. So I'm going to make sure this is the appropriate size and appropriate spot so you can still see the comments. See how that looks. That looks like the ticket right there, maybe a little smaller. Hey everybody, just getting started. Let me get these prompts set up in the right place so that everybody can still see the comments and at the same time see the prompt. I think that probably works. All right, let me know in the comments what you think. We're going to do a Q&A as well. And then we will go from there. And we're live streaming on YouTube, TikTok, and in just a second we'll be on Instagram as well. So you can tune into any of those places, of course. I'd love to have you subscribe or follow no matter what platform it's on. That gives me a little diversification and allows me to continue to get out the message, the anti-corruption message. You know, our country is not in good shape, right? We don't have any control over our lives, at least our political lives, and we need to do something about it. But today's is going to be a call-in show about AI versus nukes and what people think is more dangerous and should government have any control over it. So I think we're looking good there. And let me just get started in one other place and then we'll get going. All right. And if everybody wants to answer the question first in the comments. Hey, everybody, we're just getting started on this live, as I mentioned already. So if you're doom scrolling by, I hope you will stick around because I think it is meaningful. Doing a live on, obviously, nukes versus AI. You're hearing a lot of things about AI, of course. But just in the news, a little bit here and there, but there's not a lot of things being done about it. So if you want to jump in and discuss this, jump into the conversation. I'm going to try and do something a little differently with the guest today, but anyhow, sorry, I know I'm rambling a little bit. All right, welcome David from Massachusetts, Red Iron Ranch, William Browning. Hopefully we have a good audience in here today. Trying to do this earlier. I'm going to try and establish a more consistent live show at a certain time. So I hope people will stick around. So what do you think is more dangerous? You can answer in the comments or you can join the live, request to join, and we can have a discussion about it because this is really important. We're not having, obviously, nukes have been regulated by the government since the inception, basically, right? Since the early days, nukes have been regulated. But here we are with AI with no regulation. And it's scary as shit, in my opinion. Like AI is advancing quickly. You're not hearing government talk about it. You're hearing the tech billionaires talk about it, but you're not hearing anything from our government really talking about it, other than Bernie sometimes mentions it, but not many other people. Like, what is being done at the government level? How inept is our government with AI compared to nuclear weapons? So I want to see what most people think. What do they think is more dangerous? Red Iron Ranch, welcome. Immediate danger to nukes in the next 5 years, AI. I think that's probably right, but the danger to humanity of nukes is proven to be pretty, not minimal. I don't want to use minimal, but over 80 years now, 70 years, 80 years, the government has proven that they can control nukes. There's been maybe some close calls, but nukes don't seem to be an existential threat to humanity at this point because of mutually assured destruction, right? So you're most likely not going to have a nuclear war. You could. There are things that could, of course, happen. but they're not a total existential threat to all of humanity. Of course, the world would change dramatically if there was a major nuclear war of some kind, but it's not going to change dramatically. On AI, on the other hand, obviously is advancing super quick, and there seems to be no government regulation. And that's the whole point of government. Government is to protect its people from foreign adversaries or for whatever it might be. The entire role of government is to protect its society, right? And to regulate. But of course, we have no regulation on AI, and we're allowing these tech billionaires to control AI, like the insanity, a for-profit motive only controlling AI. To me, that's incredibly scary. So learn history. We have been way closer than virtually everyone knows. I understand the history. I know we've been closer, but the problem is imaginary men, or not the problem. The success is it hasn't happened. So we may have been close. No one knows exactly how close to nuclear detonations, but in terms of all-out nuclear war, you don't know that, right? But the point is it hasn't happened, right? It hasn't happened. So the governments have worked, and it's been proven to work up until now, that nuclear, it can be contained. Artificial intelligence is not regulated by the government. And you're hearing all types of ridiculous stuff from people like Elon Musk saying, oh, people aren't going to have to work in 20 years. But you know what they're not saying? They're not saying how we're going to actually afford groceries or afford our homes. They're just saying we don't have to work. But they're not saying they're going to pay, everyone's going to get paid. You know, the companies that control AI are not going to do a universal basic income for everybody. They're not going to do that. They're not talking about it, because if they were talking about it, they would be lobbying government to put it into action. But that's not their job. Their job is not to promote government to save us or to make sure that society is okay. That's the role of government. It's the role of government to regulate any threat, whether that's a foreign threat, whether that's a technology threat, whether that's a local threat, it doesn't matter. Government's job is to regulate. So I would much rather have strong government regulation. You know, the government in China is regulating their AI dramatically. They are understanding what's happening in China with their entire AI industry. They have a tremendous amount of oversight, and they're advancing it too on purpose as well. But there's also tremendous oversight. Here, there's no oversight, right? It seems like there's no oversight whatsoever. And that's the scary part about AI. When you have artificial general intelligence someday, where you have artificial intelligence today is essentially, at least publicly, just language learning models, like really, really advanced, not spell check, but, finishing your sentences and obviously being able to search the internet. But artificial general intelligence is when obviously AI will be able to do everything on its own without human intervention. So it'll just be like artificial general intelligence that humans have, right? So people are talking about you need to learn AI, and the young people today need to learn how to utilize AI, but that's going to be a very short period of time. Humans manipulating AI, so people who are advocating that you need to learn AI and you need to take advantage of it, that's true, but it's going to be a very short period of time, because when artificial general intelligence comes along, it won't need any human intervention if it truly becomes AGI, which it's most likely going to do. All right, so let's take some questions in the comments. Thanks for those of you who are joining. Doesn't seem to be a super popular topic, which is a little surprising. I thought this would be very popular. Maybe it's just the wrong time of day. Which is more dangerous to humanity? Artificial intelligence, specifically AGI, artificial general intelligence, or nuclear weapons? Should there be government oversight of AI? My son is learning AI in college, right, Lindsay? Yeah, and it's good, but the problem is, how long is that skill going to be needed? Right now, we're just using AI to prompt us, to help us get things done. But in the future, that's not what AI will be like. AI, of course, when it's inserted into physical beings, mean robotics, and then you also have the artificial general intelligence, then what is the need for humans? Is it just to tell AGI what to do? And will it continue to obey humans? All things that we don't know. Like, there's so many questions. I am not an AI expert. I've been in tech a very, very long time. So I understand it at a high level. I understand what AGI, the potential threat of AGI, but of course we have no government oversight. So if anyone wants to join as a guest and talk about it, please join as a guest. Of course, I'm going to also throw up this graphic as well, which is who is controlling AI. And it's essentially these people right here. I know it's blocking me a little bit, but obviously we have these enormous, wealthy tech billionaires with incredible wealth, power, and control. Elon Musk using, obviously, Gronk AI, and building robotics through Tesla. Then you have Larry Ellison's involved in AI. So is Jeff Bezos. So is Mark Zuckerberg. And of course, at the bottom of the list, Sam Altman. These are 7 billionaires that have a lot of influence in AI. And we're allowing billionaires to control what's going to happen with AI, which is just ridiculous, disgusting, incredibly irresponsible by us as a society and, of course, our government. But because we have no representation in our government, meaning our government, most of the representation in our government currently is not representing the people. It's representing corporations. It's representing foreign governments. It's representing lobbyists. It's representing all these other forces. But most of our government and our Congress does not represent us, the people. The entire basis or premise of the Constitution is we, the people of the United States, a government for the people, by the people. That is ultimately the problem here, is that we all know that we don't have a government for the people, by the people. It's operating more like a plutocracy or corporatocracy. And if you have any doubts about that, hey, CRL, welcome. If you ever have any doubts about that, all you had to do is look at the last inauguration, and you saw who was in the very front row at the inauguration was these tech billionaires. That's who was in the front row, in front of Congress. And Congress is the people's representation. And I don't care whether you agree with Congress or don't. And, we all know that congressional approval is incredibly low, and it has been for a long time. But that does not negate the fact that the people's representation, meaning the House of Representatives and our senators, should always be in the first row behind the president. That is so telling that you had tech billionaires and corporate leaders right behind Donald Trump in the very first row. That shows that there's no separation, essentially, between our government and our corporations, which is ridiculous. And we all know it. And I don't care if you're MAGA or you're liberal or you're anywhere in between. We all know the core issue. And the idea is that we obviously need to take it back. So does anyone want to join me in the live as a guest and talk about what do you think about artificial intelligence? Should there be government oversight? And if there's someone that thinks there shouldn't be government oversight, please join the live and let me know why. Obviously, my contention is that nukes have been very dangerous for a very long time to humanity. But government has proven that they've been able to responsibly, generally speaking, ensure that nukes have never been used again around the world. And that shows that the people's representation in both our country and governments in other countries have been able to ensure that nukes aren't going to be used. Now, does it mean they'll never be used? We don't know that. Of course not. But even if they were to be used, would they, first of all, if it was a threat from a certain red country, would those nukes even work? I think they would be too afraid to even launch them because they're so old and decrepit and not maintained. And would we ever use nukes first? It's unlikely that we would ever do so. So the threat of nuclear or nukes seems to be very low, and government has handled it responsibly. But with AI, there's no government oversight, at least not in the United States. And this should be the defining issue of today, that we Bernie talked about it, I think, yesterday at length in a video. I could show that video about warning the United States, warning the American people about these 7 billionaires having so much control over AI, right, with no government oversight. And, we go through our lives and nothing's being done about it. All right, so I'm going to read a few questions in the comments. If anyone wants to join as a guest, jump in the queue. We need regulation with an upstanding agency, not intertwined with this administration. Right, and that's kind of all what we had in the past with nuclear. You had a nuclear regulatory agency that's been helping the government. Let me change this setup if I can. One moment. Hey, Janelle, how are you?
Hi, I'm good.
All right. Sorry, I put you on the big screen. I'm going to change that, and let's see.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm working on some. I made some changes here, and I didn't get the right settings. I'm trying to actually not have it show like this either. But hey, Janelle, how are you? First time here?
Yes, first time here.
Oh,
nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for joining. So I see you in the comments. We need regulation with an upstanding agency. What are your thoughts?
Well, definitely there needs to be regulation. There has been false broadcasts of people, videos that have gone out that are not them. And I've seen it years ago. The deep fake Tom Cruise, for example. I don't know if you remember that.
I do remember it faintly, yeah.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. They did a really good job on that, but it's becoming more rampant, and it can just destroy people if there is no regulation around it. In my position that I currently hold, we are utilizing artificial intelligence to help with our forecasting. It is not perfected in the least at this moment, which offers job security for the moment, but for the moment, I can see where it can and will be perfected, where it will replace people's positions.
Yeah, well, we know it's a mass extinction event that's actually happening in real time right now with AI. The amount of jobs being lost in many sectors is very clear with the government saying basically nothing, right? Not even talking about like, hey, we need to plan for the next, 1, 2, or 3 years. Apparently since by 2030 or 2028, 100 million jobs will be replaced with AI. That just came out recently.
And what do we do at that point? I mean, there's no safeguard in place to ensure that we'll be able to survive.
Elon Musk says we won't have to work.
Yeah, but the mortgage still has to get paid, right? Are you going to pay our mortgage then?
You notice how he doesn't say anything like that? Like he just says, hey, you won't have to work.
He does not.
But he says
He does not.
Nothing.
Right.
Like that's some sort of like, hey, you don't have to work. That's great. Well, what about food? What about gas? What about housing? What about anything else? What about raising your kids? They never talk about. They just throw out a crumb like you don't have to work, and people think like that's a good thing. That's not a good thing.
No, it is not. I would prefer to work. It gives a sense of duty. A framework to my structure. You know what I'm saying? I enjoy what I do. So, it's an outlet for intellect. Without having an outlet for it, you're sitting idle, and it can lead to mental health issues for sure if you're not utilizing your abilities to your fullest. This could come rampant.
Well, people don't think about it. It's like every struggle we have in life, whether it's raising kids or meeting people, these are all character building. Your humanity. What do humans become? Like literally, what do humans become if we don't have to talk to anyone. Like if you get companionship from AI, you're not working, you're not socializing. Look at just what social media has done with, you know, the youngest generation not socializing, not knowing how to socialize with people. Like all these things are the human experience, right? So not, and working
Yes.
is a huge part of that. Sports, working, interactions with other humans, the less interactions we have with humans, what does that next evolution of humans even look like?
Oh, it's such a good question. It is such an unknown. Tammy, we can't feel that way. You know, we have to have a purpose and we have to come together as community to stand up to these things and raise these very important questions. I am anxious as heck in my position because they're trying to replace me with that AI, and it's not comforting. And they're stealthy about it too. We receive notification like 30 minutes before it goes live. It's not, oh, this is, 6 months out. Oh, this is like 6 days out. No, this was 30 minutes we received on our last major change within our organization.
And other people were let go, of course, but you're still there.
Other people have been let go in the past, not this last round, but the way things are going, I'm not excluding that off the table.
Right.
It's anxiety driven. I mean, it's driving my anxiety through the wall, of how do I prepare, for this, and what do we do? Am I going to be working at, Taco Bell next month? You know what I'm saying?
And you're going to
Looking at
and you're going to get
alternatives.
replaced there too. I mean, that's like one of the easiest places that
True.
A is going to replace jobs is like fast food is going to be completely AI,
Yeah.
right? You're going to
I
have a
mean,
few
I
robots
suppose.
serving and so forth.
Yeah. Exactly. So true. I mean, McDonald's has that, right? With the kiosk. You can order at the kiosk now.
Mm-hmm.
That's been for a while now. What about making the food, flipping the burgers? I don't know. I mean, I've been working at home for a number of years. I haven't done that since high school, because I'm on the other end of it, supplying rather than actually doing the physical labor of it. But that is kiosk is not AI, okay?
Well,
Because we're still inputting the data, right?
right. Well, we Mr. Z's cards. We know a kiosk is not AI. Like, but that's the transition, right? Getting rid of humans is you have a kiosk where you can order, so you need less humans. AI is, of course, going to take that to a whole nother level. You have ready robots, automations that could potentially flip burgers, but with no intelligence. Or, even in car manufacturing, you have robotics that tend to just do one or two jobs. AI changes that completely, right? So whether it's kiosk or robotics completely change when a robot can visually see things and it has the intelligence to change things. One robot could possibly do many, many jobs in the future with AI, or not just many jobs, every job.
Oh, it's so anxiety, so much anxiety.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know what? Actually, we have a couple of other guests. I'm going to invite Nan and Josh in as well. We'll have a group discussion as long as everybody keeps it cordial and keep it cool. And it's all theater as well. And Josh. All right, welcome everybody. Welcome Nan. Welcome It's All Theater. Nan, you want to go first?
Oh, geez, I didn't know I had requested up, but that's okay. I've been listening, and
All right. Well, how about It's All?
what I was
Yeah, go ahead.
what I was wondering about is, didn't they the regime say they're not going to regulate AI for 10 years, and then they'll let it be regulated? I mean, like that tells me all they need is 10 years. and then they don't care anymore.
Right. Just think of the stupidity of that. And what if they said when after nukes were developed, there was regulation not immediately, but they were working towards regulation immediately, and obviously they didn't let anyone get control of nukes. And imagine if they said, "Well, we're just going to wait 10 years and see how this plays out." The absurdity of that premise.
Yeah, yeah, disaster. So I guess that's what we're looking for. Well, if they continue, and I do think this whole thing is going to fall. I don't know when or how, but I do think that the mega um, Republicans and the type of government, I just really believe is going to fail. And we're going to come out the other side better. But just don't ask me how. I just am optimistic about that.
Good, good. I'm glad you're optimistic. Obviously, I think a lot of people are pessimistic. I always promote, as people can see in the bottom of a citizen's plan, is my plan to bring representation back to the people. At the end of the day, this is the problem, right? Government is supposed to represent people, but every other force is trying to always divide us from our government. And I'm not claiming that our government is effective by any means today. It's not. But the whole point is that our representatives are supposed to represent people. What we know they don't. They represent the tech billionaires. They represent the lobbyists. They represent the corporations, foreign governments, et cetera, right? And that's the ultimate problem that we know is that government is basically in bed with the companies, and there's no regulation. And people like this particular administration has taken a hands-off approach on less regulation, removing everything, right? Allowing people to do whatever they want, of course, not even obeying the rule of law. So we get to a point where our government doesn't represent us whatsoever, even our congressional leaders, for the most part. There's a few here and there, of course, that are trying to, but as a system, we're not being represented. And that's, of course, the ultimate problem of this. So if we're ever going to solve that problem, there has to be a popular movement. It's literally the only way. It's the only thing that people in power are ever scared of, and that's a popular movement. You have enough people that rise up that want change, and that's what wealthy people are always afraid with. That's what people in power, that's what politicians are always afraid of. And we've done it in the past, the civil rights movement, the voting rights movement, the Vietnam demonstrations, yada, 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 and other people across all over the world have done it as well. So it has to be some sort of popular movement that rises up to potentially change, the state of play.
I'm with you, and I agree with you. And maybe that's how it does happen. When I say I don't know exactly how we're going to be victorious. But we do have, like, doesn't the progressive movement have like 100 members that actually want universal health care and education and the safety nets that we need? And
Right.
we need minimum wage. We haven't had our wages go up in years, and we can't keep up anymore.
That's why
We need a huge.
you could argue that Mamdani won the New York election because of exactly that. They call him obviously a democratic socialist, but the safety nets is what he was talking about, and making sure people can afford basic housing and so forth. And obviously, he rose up out of nowhere. And I am a staunch independent, but with progressive values and some conservative values. But at the end of the day, there has to be social safety nets, and that's what a lot of people on the right, they believe that these things shouldn't exist. But however, when it comes to healthcare, actually many people on the right also are coming around to understanding that we need universal basic healthcare, right? Or universal healthcare insurance.
Yeah. So um, hopefully, when we can get our message out, um, we'll have some normal Republicans that by polls suggest that they're concerned about health care and that we should all be able to not die from lack of care anyways.
Right. All right, Josh, and I don't know what the other username is. It's all theater. Who wants to go next?
Well, I'll go.
Go
That's
ahead,
fine.
Josh.
I understand. I myself, I work for the government, and I understand exactly what they're saying and everything like that. And I kind of disagree. I do not see that AI and stuff like that's going to take over I do understand that yes, AI is coming in and stuff like that, but I do not see that AI is going to totally take over. I do not see that whatsoever.
How do you not see that? Like, what gives you the knowledge or the expertise to think? Where do you? How much experience do you have with AI, and what is AI to you? Are you talking about what you see today with ChatGPT, or do you understand what artificial general intelligence is?
Yes, I understand what artificial intelligence is. It's not actually intelligence. It's like the lady said before. It's ran by humans. It's not actual intelligence itself.
Right. Well, those are called language learning models, right? That's what we have today with ChatGPT and others. They're essentially language learning models,
Right, but it doesn't. Go ahead.
which is the fear is, of course, even from the godfather of AI, is that artificial general intelligence will follow, obviously, these language learning models.
Yes, yes, I understand that very much, but it's still not its own basis. Therefore, it doesn't have its own I don't even know what to call it. Its own brain, pretty much.
Oh, it's gathering that, Josh. Just by gathering that data, it's creating its own database
Well, yes,
from us. You know,
yes, but there you go. There's the answer right there. It's us.
At the moment, right? It's
at the
basically
moment, right?
you have a newborn baby that doesn't have any intelligence either.
Okay, okay. So if you listen to that right now, that's no different than okay. Like I said, I work. I okay. I don't work for the federal government. I work for the state. Okay, and we're kind of doing the same thing in the state. We're starting to use AI and stuff like that in the state, getting rid of people and stuff like that. And it's kind of the same thing as like I don't want to go religious or anything, but almost like something creating another something. If you understand what I'm saying.
Well, Josh, here's the point though. Like, I am not an artificial intelligence expert. I've been in tech for a very long time. I understand technologies and coding and engineering, but I can't claim I'm an artificial intelligence expert. And it sounds like you're clearly not either. And the point here is when you have complicated subjects where there could be disagreement within the population, it's not up for you or me to think about what it might do. It's up to government to get involved. The expertise within government and or the private sector, meaning the government hires private sector people to represent the people to figure out where is this going and to regulate it. Because there could have been people in nuclear in the past that thought the same thing. Like whether it's, you can take pandemics and so forth. It's not up to a regular person who has no experience and no education in diseases to determine what should be done. It's all about having expertise and following the science. This is science. And you need to have scientific experts, including like the godfather of AI, who's been warning in YouTube videos and others what's going to happen with AI. So you might not believe it's going to do something, but that's not the point. It shouldn't be based on what the population believes is going to happen. It has to be researched. It has to be regulated. It has to be oversight. Anything that's potentially dangerous, you could perceive a foreign adversary as, oh, I don't believe Russia is a threat to us, but somebody else could think that Russia is a threat. But that's not the point of government, is to come up with plans and have oversight to see if this would happen, how do we react to it?
Well, yes, I understand exactly what you're saying. That's no different than sitting there and saying instead of reaction, proaction. That's exactly what you just said. Instead of reaction, proaction.
Okay, I'm not really following. Are you advocating that government shouldn't have regulation over AI? Shouldn't be having oversight?
No, exactly what you just explained is just that instead of reaction, you should have proaction.
Right.
Instead of reacting to a problem, you should automatically know it's happening and automatically have the problem to fix it.
Right. We should be proactive in having research and understanding what the potential threats are, right? You should always
Exactly.
be proactive of any potential threats in the future, no matter what that threat might be.
Right.
Right. Janelle, are you still here with us?
Yep, I am.
Okay. And it's all Theodore. Are you here with us? Do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
My audio is cutting out quite a bit. Can you hear me?
You're a little bit delayed, but we can hear you.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah, I mean, a few things have been brought up that I hadn't even thought about as far as the nuclear weapons being involved in AI. That is absolutely terrifying. And so I think there should absolutely be AI oversight. You know, Janelle brought up an interesting point there with the deepfake videos. I think that's probably a top of mind. What a lot of people think about bad things that could go wrong immediately with AI, because we've seen that. That's easy. You know, I've got a brother who's in that digital space, and he was a model as well. And it's something I hadn't thought about before, but AI is putting a lot of those people out of work because we're able to generate, you know, so many images that have fantastic quality, and you don't have to pay an actor or a model or a sit-in or anything like that. Now, some of that is naturally that's going to occur with AI, and some of it is a good thing. A lot of it is not, because to your point earlier, we still have to have food in our bellies. We still have to have a roof over our home, and if we're not working, how are we going to be able to provide for that?
Yeah, and you're talking about what Janelle, I think, mentioned. I think it was Janelle before, talked about, you know, deep fakes. You're talking about the most rudimentary types of threats. Like, if we're thinking about deep fakes,
Absolutely.
artificial intelligence, AGI, is like, that is just like the basic. In a year from now, or 2 years from now, deep fakes will be the least of our concerns. It's going to get so much more advanced than just deep fakes.
Right.
Right, absolutely.
We're just at the
What people
beginnings.
can do with those deep fakes and what they can actually convince people of is more terrifying. But yeah, it's very much tip of the spear with AI. So regulation absolutely needs to be had. But again, do we entirely trust these agencies who are going to be putting these regulations in place for the AI? You know, earlier you spoke about how little our. Sorry, yeah, I was going to say earlier you spoke about how little our government actually represents us, which I believe is true. I don't think we have much representation at all in Washington, you know, at the local level even. So do we trust these agencies that they have to actually regulate beneficially for us or just for them?
Right. The sad part is we have no other source to trust right now. We would want to be able to trust them like we have been, relatively speaking, in the past. But I would still argue, even, you know, because obviously the people's representation are our senators and the House of Representatives. Clearly, right now, they're more interested in being party affiliated and doing what's best for the party instead of what's best for the nation. And that's only a development that's happened over the past 30-ish years, right? There's always been tremendous infighting, but it's really been about the last 20 years where there's been a complete ceasing, or a relative complete ceasing of compromise, right? It's just our way or your way. It's either winning or losing. And, you know, you could go back to the Mitt Romney days and the Biden days when he was a senator, and John McCain and others, and they had, you know, and all the various, they all had just huge disagreements. But at the end of the day, they created legislation that was a compromise, right? And back then, we thought that it couldn't get any worse, the divisiveness between both parties. What we see today, that was practically, you know, that was nothing compared to what we have today in terms of how divisive each party is with each other.
Oh yeah, those are good old days. I think a lot of us would love to get back to something closer to that. Whether or not it's possible, I mean, it seems like we're running a battle uphill right now.
So I'm going to use that as a moment before Lady Liberty jumps in as a sort of shout out to everybody, because I know there's a lot of new people here today watching. It is possible. I'm not going to say it's easy, but I mention it all the time, and it's the whole reason I have this account and these channels, is trying to do, like, we all wake up in the morning and we're like, well, what can we do about the greater good of society? And we all realize there's not much we can do, because each of us individually have no power, no control other than what's over our direct lives. But if there are 50 million people that had a popular movement around making sure representation came back to the people, it could happen. And we need a 28th Amendment. It's a 28th Amendment would almost solve everything. There's other ways to do it as well. But at the end of the day, no matter what the actual solution is, and I believe it's a 28th Amendment, making sure that all elections are publicly funded by human beings, meaning individuals, and not artificial entities like corporations and foreign governments and lobbyists and so forth. That one amendment could change everything. Now, people say you can't get amendments passed. It's true, it's difficult. There are other means to do it, but 50 million people, if they wanted to make sure that because at the end of the day, it's greed and corruption that is the sole root cause or the cancer of every single issue in our society. I don't care what your core issue is, or whatever people want to argue about. At the end of the day, it ends up being the corruption, right? Because if our representatives are being not elected by corporations, but the money being spent to influence our elections is being done by groups like the Heritage Foundation and the Federalist Society and the lobbyists and the George Soroses of the world. I don't care if they're right or left. It doesn't matter to me. At the end of the day, the elimination or removal of all campaign finance restrictions starting in 1976 with Buckley versus Vallejo and ending in 2010 with Citizens United, those removal of the restrictions on who can donate money to campaigns and to parties, that is the ultimate problem with our government. So people think it's impossible to bring representation back to the people. I don't think it's impossible. I do think it's very difficult. But I actually think if it's 50 million people that wanted to do it, it would not be impossible. It would actually almost certainly happen. So it's very binary. If you want to make these types of changes, you have to have the people. There has to be a popular movement. No different than MAGA. MAGA took over the Republican Party, but Trump didn't take over the Republican Party. He needed the 50 million plus people to actually help him take over the Republican Party.
No, I agree 100%. I mean, it does always follow the money in politics, right? That's where it always ends up going.
Yeah.
And if we could find a way to remove money from politics, I mean, that's a great start right there. I mean, the biggest problem, to your point earlier, is they've got to vote that in. And will they do that?
That's right.
Of course not.
And they won't.
That's
right.
right.
And that's why you have to replace a lot of politicians, career politicians. There are means to do it. 1992 almost happened with the Reform Party and Ross Perot. So it's not impossible. Again, it just comes down to, we're all being divided between right and left, and we don't want to waste our votes. And the division causes us not to be able to be effective in forcing any change, right? The more we're divided, the more they control. Like people in power maintain their power, maintain their wealth just because we're divided.
Correct. And earlier you had mentioned something as well, that you're more of an independent and you lean a little more progressive. So I think someone had mentioned, it might have been in Janelle, that was asking about whether or not there are, moderate conservatives out there. And there are. I'm one of those. I'm more independent myself, but I lean slightly more conservative than I would progressive. And so, I mean, there are level-headed, I guess if you want to label me a conservative, I would be that versus a progressive right now. But there's a lot of progressive politics and bills that I'm absolutely on board with.
So let me ask you a question. Would you support universal health care insurance?
100%.
See that? Thank you for answering that so honestly. Because here's the point, and reason I asked that. That is something that most people believe is a progressive or a liberal issue. It is not. It is not a liberal issue. It's just portrayed that way because there are millions of people on the right would want to support universal health care insurance. So there's actually this constant division between conservatives and liberals. Like, for instance, I'll take a few of my conservative values. I am about, it would be nice to balance the budget and reducing fraud and waste, something that seems to be more right-wing leaning. I am pro-Second Amendment. I believe in the rights of Americans to own guns, not completely unrestricted, but I'm also for firm enforcement of the border and illegal immigration. I don't believe,
Okay, so can I ask a question when you got a second?
Yeah, hang on one second. And so these are some conservative values, but they're not actually conservative values. There are tons of liberals that believe in those same things. There are many people on the left that believe that are pro Second Amendment and that want firm enforcement of immigration. And there's a lot of people on the right that would also support universal health care insurance. All right, go ahead. You're up next.
Okay, so you have the Mesopotamians, the Egyptians, the Romans, and now the Americans that all ran by power with money, whether back when it was gold, whether it was some kind of whatever, some kind of I've got wealth. I've got wealth, so I run everything.
Yeah, wealth is power.
That's how it all the power exactly. I've got wealth, so I run everything. Yeah, exactly. That's how it ran.
Well, I'm gonna mute some people. We got a lot of feedback, just in case. It might be you, Josh.
I'm not saying anything. Okay, so I've got power, I've got wealth, so I run everything. And that's exactly how America is running. I've got power, I've got wealth. And that's the only way we'd ever be able to like fix it unless there'd be some kind of giant, almost like civil war or something like that. And that's only if you've got people that have got money to fix it.
Well, who's got power? You say America has power and wealth. You say the people with AI control right now, they are the wealthiest billionaires that we have in the United States. So they have power and wealth as individuals. Now, the United States, of course, is the wealthiest and most powerful nation on the earth as well. But these are two a little bit different, right? Wealth is power, no doubt about it. But do you want wealth in control of its population where you have self-rule and the government's wealth is, basically in democracies, right? Most democracies don't go to war very often. They are not offensive. Authoritarianships, of course, and autocracies and imperial type countries, they go to war. So the point is, do you want the money? Of course, the United States is in a unique position with incredible amount of resources. So that always gives us wealth and power. But with great power comes great responsibility. And when you have self-rule and a nation of representatives, you tend to have, what we set up after World War II, the United States set up is a world order, a rules-based world order. Now, it's not always been perfect by any means, but it's been by far the most peaceful state of the world in a very long time.
Yes, I understand you very much, but from what I understand, you had from where it started back before the gold, when the gold standard started, and then all of a sudden we ran past gold and ran way much more cash than the availability of gold. And then it got to the point to where you got pretty much a K economy. You had, going up the top of the K, that was the rich, the millionaires, this, that, and the other. And you had the bottom K to where it was going down and it was, okay, doing okay, whatever, going down to the fucking very bottom poor, the fucking homeless.
Well, let's not get into economic policy. The goal, moving to a Federal Reserve and moving away from the gold standard has benefited not just the rich and powerful, but has benefited all Americans and most of the rest of the world dramatically. The gold standard, I don't know where you're going with, you think a lot of people think you should go back to some sort of gold standard. I think it's a ridiculous notion and it doesn't hold up.
I didn't say that one bit.
Okay.
I'm just telling you that's exactly what happened. That's what happened to this country.
Okay. I disagree with that. I've seen what's happened in this country through the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s. And I can say this country lost its way once we lost our representation by the wealth, right? By the wealthy individuals and corporations. That's where we lost our way.
Yeah, I'm pretty much saying kind of the same exact thing. It's just all the money went that way.
Right. Well, you've had an elimination or a reduction in regulations of tax laws and other things that have all allowed the money to, in the diversity, the lack of, distribution of wealth has gone away from the middle class up into the richest. People talk about 1%. It's not even 1%. The 1% make about $700,000 a year. Yes, that's a lot of money, but we're not talking about the 1%. We're talking about the 0.01% or even 0.001%.
That that's a very small percentage, and you're talking about $100,000 a year. No, no. Okay.
No, 700,000. The 1% make about $700,000 a year.
Oh, okay.
You know,
That's a better
so there's a
number.
big difference.
And
When people talk about raising taxes, they're saying, you know, they raise taxes on the 1%. That's actually not really right because, you know, yes, $700,000 is a lot of money, but it's not the kind of wealth where billionaires have, right? Billionaires and the money that they make is. So people think about the 1%, and it's really not the 1% anymore. There's a very, very small group of people, just a few hundred people that control an enormous amount of the wealth in the United States.
yes, I understand that very much. You've got what's their name? The dude that runs Apple, dude that runs Microsoft, this, that. Those are your people. Those are your billionaires that pretty much run this country.
Well, Tim Cook is just over a billionaire. He actually, yes, it's $1 billion. It's a lot of money, but it's nowhere in comparison. Apple's been actually the board of Apple and Tim Cook himself have not made him into, like, you think about Apple. The CEO of Apple could be the wealthiest man in the world, more than Elon Musk, or equal to. But they've actually been, if you want to call it, somewhat responsible. But just that one example was not probably the best example. Okay.
Truth.
Who's up next? Lady Liberty, you still here with us?
I'm here. Hi, guys.
We'll try and get back on track. Artificial intelligence or nukes.
So I just wanted to quickly kind of put a dot on a very important bit of information. How many people here understand what the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists is, or the Doomsday Clock?
We're all, I think most people are familiar with the Doomsday Clock, right?
Right. So in January of this year, the Doomsday Clock was set to 89 seconds, which is the closest to midnight it has ever been set. And the Doomsday Clock started in 1947, and it was started by the scientists that were involved in the Manhattan Project. And as a result of the Manhattan Project, we gained the Nuclear Arms Treaty, International Nuclear Arms Treaty. So, you know, every year the atomic scientists will set the Doomsday Clock, and they will tell everybody why they're setting the Doomsday Clock to whatever time they're setting it to. And this year, you know, it's been expanded in the past, but this year the threat in their eyes was to dangerous tech like artificial intelligence. So I'm saying this because it ties back to the original prompt that you've put on the screen. And I said it in the notes in the chat here that I believe artificial intelligence is our greatest threat right now. And it's not just large language models. That's the thing that everybody knows as ChatGPT. But systems and infrastructure are being built all over the world with artificial intelligence, and they are engineering a future that is going to be virtually impossible for us to live in. It'll be wildly different than what we are living today. And if you can't accept that as the trajectory that we are on right now, I highly suggest you look into it, because it is something that we all need to give our attention to and do something about quickly. So yeah, I do think, just to answer the question, it is artificial intelligence. Yes, the nukes are very dangerous, but it's the technology and the men that run the technology. Artificial intelligence could have been really great for everybody. If it had stayed with the scientists in academia, instead it was overtaken by megalomaniac millionaire, billionaire, trillionaires, and they really don't have good ambitions with it. So yeah, that's my answer. It's a lot, but
No, I want to ask anyone, does anyone in the comments or anyone that's watching actually trust the 7 billionaires that I have up on the screen? I think I have it up on the screen. No, I just took it off. Let me put it back up. Like literally, would anyone want to put or just trust these people? Elon Musk, Larry Ellison, Jeff Bezos, the Murdochs, Mark Zuckerberg, Sam Altman, and Peter Thiel. Like, does anyone trust these people? Anyone
absolutely
in the
not.
right? Why would you, right? Like, have they ever told us the truth about anything? Remember when Mark Zuckerberg said the world is going to be so much better when we're all connected with one another? And in some ways, it's been nice, but you could easily argue that the negative consequences have outweighed the positive consequences of even just like social media, right? Never mind. And the things that they used to say, they always talk about these utopian type things. You used to have it with Mark Zuckerberg talking about utopian type things of how great the world's going to be when we have social media. You have Elon Musk talking about AI many times. He also does point out some threats about AI, but like recently he just said, we're going to be not going to have to work anymore, right? To make it sound like it's some utopia because we don't have to work. But he doesn't say anything about the survival of humanity or ensuring the survival of humanity. None of these people, whether it's Larry Ellison, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Sam Altman, have talked about life is going to be better because we're going to do X, Y, and Z. They just say that, they put out these fallacies or they try and do these blanket promises like we're not going to have to work anymore. But there's no actual plan. There's nothing out there. So these people are obviously, there's nothing. As I talked about in one of my videos, the 7 deadly sins, right? When you have this much power and wealth, you have too much pride and you have an excessive belief in your own self-importance. And then you have obviously unlimited greed, the constant greed. There's no such thing as I have enough with these types of people. They always are trying to compete for more power and more control.
Yeah, absolutely. And the problem is that the systems that they are building or have built has been built off of our data. And we never consented to giving our data to them. And our data is currently being used against us, but it's also, they're using it to profit off of us. I mean, they're making so much money that data is now a commodity and it's almost hotter than gold. And I'm just here to say, I think we all need to, in addition to fixing our government, we all need to probably think pretty quickly about enacting some kind of international AI treaty, as they did with the nuclear arms treaty, because it's going to impact the entire world, all humans. And if we don't come together quickly on this, and I believe it's an issue that it won't matter if you're red or blue, brown or black, it impacts you. So that's my 2 cents. I don't know if that's still on topic or not, but I think it's really imperative.
Those things always start with the most powerful countries in the world, like nuclear arms treaties, like Russia and of course the United States. And when in this case with AI, it's China and the United States, and there's no dialogue about this whatsoever between countries. Right? There's no government intervention, or there seems to be no dialogue between all these two particular powers. Never mind the other ones as well.
Well, the frustration is, I have 2 frustrations. The biggest one is that the public wasn't warned about this in time to do anything. And 2, the other frustration is there are many organizations that are trying to enact some kind of treaty, and they just refuse to do it. And currently, there was a provision in the One Big Beautiful Bill that was directly related to this topic, and it had been struck at one point from the final bill. And what was struck was some type of regulation on the federal level, right? So now we entered, when the big beautiful bill was signed, we entered the wild wild west of artificial intelligence and the unethical, unregulated, development of all things that utilize artificial intelligence. States still control, but now they're going after that. Like right now, as we speak, they are going after any state that still maintains regulation over AI.
Right. They're trying to prohibit states from intervening in AI regulation, right?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, thanks for
And,
that.
and I feel, sorry, real quick, I feel if, unless we get a grip on artificial intelligence, the truth, and we will never regain democracy in our country until we have that reestablished in our country.
Right on. All right, I'm going to do something that I haven't tried to do before. So those of you that are on TikTok, I'm going to try and bring on someone from Instagram. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if those of you on TikTok are going to be able to hear the person. So if you can just bear with me, I'm going to have Jay come in and see if it works. And if you can let me know if you can hear him, if they end up joining. Actually, you won't be able to.
Is it TK Civics on?
I can hear you. Let's see if people on TikTok can hear you. How are you? All right, those of you on TikTok, can you hear Jay from California?
Very faintly.
Very faintly.
I can't hear.
No, it's definitely not you, Jay. It's definitely my setup. So let me see. I don't know what the situation is. Let me try one thing. Thanks for those of you on TikTok for bearing with me for a moment. It is no doubt. So thanks for joining. Let me check with everybody. Can you guys hear them? It's low. Okay, Red Iron Ranch. You can hear. That's interesting because it's also faint for me, even in my headset. So it's not you, by the way, Jay. I don't think it's you. I think it might be something that I have here.
When you were talking to the previous speakers, I couldn't hear anything. When they were talking from TikTok, I could not hear anything.
Okay, that's good to know as well. All right.
I could just hear your responses, but we couldn't hear their dialogue.
Now I can hear you louder, and it looks
Okay.
like everybody on TikTok can hear you as well.
Okay.
But you couldn't hear TikTok people. That's interesting.
No, not a sound.
All right, I'm gonna have to. Oh, I actually know why that is. Can you hear Mr. Global? Can you see if Jay can hear you right now? Or anyone else that's on TikTok?
On TikTok, can she hear me now?
Nothing, Jay?
Nope.
Interesting. All right. Well, we did a little experiment. It's not wildly successful, but all right.
Yeah, I just found you randomly on my feed one day, based on the algorithm, based on Big Brother, right? But sometimes it's a hit and miss, but most of the time lately, the algorithm has been right on for people that I'm like, wow, let me listen to this person.
Well, I appreciate that. I just started posting to Instagram not too long ago, and a couple of the videos did really well. So I went from having 500 followers to 10,000 now, I think. So I think that's why the algorithm is starting to spread it a little bit more on Instagram.
Yeah, I'm not a TikTok user, or what was it, X or whatever, Twitter, never have been. Basically, Instagram started off with posting photos, but there's been a lot of activism and a lot of education that I really like. Facebook, I don't hardly get on. So I have to say that I get a lot of good information on Instagram. So, but I'm surprised that you don't have a lot of people that are signed on from Instagram. I mean, I started sharing yesterday. But anyway, I guess the topic, what I kind of heard was just kind of loosely AI. I don't trust it. I don't want it. Like I said, I'm a medical professional. I see patients. The company I work for is a big medical corporation. It's corporate medicine. We contract with companies where we do on-site clinics for primary care or off-site. I'm off-site and I'm contracted to treat a certain group of patients with the local union. And so now everyone's, corporate, the leaders, the managers are like, oh, we're going to do a live rollout for AI to help with your charting and this and that. And it's optional. Well, guess what? I'm never going to use it. I feel like, unless you're not willing to do your own research in medicine. I mean, this is why I went to school. This is what you learn when you put the years in experience, going to medical conferences, doing your research, reading. I don't need a computer that I don't know if it's going to glitch up, that's either going to share personal information of my patients or give me the wrong information. I just don't trust it.
Clearly it's going to get better. But that's the thing that I always mention about AI. So I think it's a great segue to something that the difference between people talk about deepfakes, they talk about AI. The difference between humans and AI is, and if AI in the future, even if it's, let's say, in robotics, and even if it's wildly intelligent, how will you ever know what to trust that AI says to you? Because the delineation you have with humans is, if a human has integrity and character and morals and has proven themselves to be trustworthy, you can generally go on that fact that you can trust that individual, right? And obviously, humanity is terrible at doing that, just like with our elected officials. But nonetheless, you can know who to keep at an arm's length or who to actually trust. Humans always have that sort of that value-based system that comes from usually when you're being raised by your parents. They give you a value system outside if you're a sociopath or a psychopath or things of that nature. And that's always going to be the difference, is when someone speaks to you. Like I talk about influencers all the time. There's a lot of influencers that the young people in particular, let's say it was Charlie Kirk or whether it's all these influencers, and even Andrew Tate, one of the most disgusting people in the world and social media. Not everything they said was wrong. Not everything they said, but let's say half of the time they were just spewing hate and distrust, and the other half of the time they were saying something that you can relate to. And a lot of people did that. And people think, well, Andrew Tate and these other influencers, they say a lot of things that they agree with. The problem is not that they say some things that you agree with. The problem is that a lot of what they spew is also hatred and in misinformation. And people today think about your neighbor. If your neighbor lied to you half the time and the other half they were being truthful, would you ever trust that person for anything?
Well, I think that all comes also, and this is no disrespect or slight towards the younger folks that may be listening. It's a whole different generational way of looking at life and discerning information that comes at us. And you have to remember that the majority of people that maybe are on Instagram, TikTok, they were born with computers in their hand at the age of 3. I've seen it in pediatrics offices where children come in toddler age and they have their own tablet, and so they lose the nuance of face-to-face communication and doing their own independent research, learning things that way. I mean, everything's automated, everything's intelligence, driven, algorithm driven, and so you lose all of the human contact. And also, like you said, 50%. Why would you trust someone when half of what they tell you is a lie or misinformation? Why would you want to trust that person?
Right. And AI, you'll never be able to know because you never have a history of whether their value system or integrity. It'll always be most likely transactional, whatever gets the best advantage and outcome, like some humans are today. But those humans, you can identify those humans.
Sure. And so what you're doing with this AI and how they're trying to sell it, part of the corporate world is, I mean, don't be fooled. Medicine should not be for profit. I've worked in nonprofit clinics, community clinics, and now I'm in a profit driven, even though they try to cover that up. If they're not profit, we don't accept money in our clinic. It's all handled on the back end. Trust me, it's all profit driven. And so the purpose of AI, yeah, it's for, they're selling it like it's gonna give you all the information you need at your fingertips. You can better serve your patient. But what it really is like, let's cut down the time you spend in doing your own nuances as a provider, because medicine is an art as much as it is a science. And so they're going to cut that factor out of it, and they're just going to feed you all this data. But the data could be wrong, and not everybody is a cookbook, example of this disease or that person.
Right.
And so, and they could punch you wrong. There's already been stories, which I'm sure you've heard, where gullible individuals have been given misinformation and caused self-harm.
Right.
You've heard of that.
That's happening more and more often these days.
Exactly. And what about these political ads where there's AI of my Governor Newsom with his likeness and his voice, but it's really not him?
Right. Going back to what you said about regulation, and for those people that are on the far right, particularly MAGA and so forth, the ridiculousness, like not a single person I don't think would ever agree with nuclear weapons should have been a for-profit enterprise once they were created. Everyone knew that you needed to control these things right from day one, and it needed to be fully government controlled. Some things are inherently government controlled, and that's with nuclear weapons. And I would argue the same thing. You're going to your healthcare. People don't understand. Like, if you are ever going to have a society where you should have a right, healthcare would probably be the very first one, where it's inherently governmental because it makes no logical sense whatsoever to have total conflict of interest for for-profit companies, specifically insurance companies, for-profit insurance companies managing your health, whether you can get healthcare or not. There's an inherent conflict of interest because they make more money by denying you coverage, and it doesn't. Versus if it's government taking over the hospitals, or they're taking over the providers, or they're taking over anything. All those things can be either nonprofit or for profit. It's the only thing that you have to eliminate for profit is the insurance companies. Some countries do nonprofit hospitals as well, but no one's promoting that. So people think that government healthcare in this country means the government controls healthcare. It doesn't control anything other than insurance. It's who's paying for your insurance. That's all it means. That's all it should mean. And then the same thing when it comes to AI, you could easily argue because AI is an existential threat to humanity, that it needs to be fully regulated and be fully governmental controlled with government, at the very least, full government oversight of every single thing that's happening in the AI space.
Although now you see where they're dismantling, like they eliminated the Department of Education, the EPA. You have RFK Jr., who is not a medical professional, who now is saying that hepatitis B vaccine at birth, they want to get rid of that, and we all know that that's a horrible decision. That's gonna create some young children from getting cirrhosis or liver disease. So I just can't believe the world I live in. It's really disheartening. If I just want to focus on my career or my lane in medicine, I just can't believe it's like every day there's a bombardment. And it's like you said, I heard you say this like half an hour ago, it's all money driven. It's profit driven. Everything that we do is based on profit. And we've raised these young folks, not everybody, not my two kids, to worship wealth and people that acquire wealth for the sake of acquiring wealth.
Right. It's not a uniquely American disease, but it is a disease that's uniquely American created. It fermented. The cancer really started in the United States with unregulated, right, with these billionaires and envying billionaires and so forth. There's much tighter controls in literally every other country around the world about these people with unlimited wealth, right? But we envy people like Musk, and you look at their personal traits. These are despicable, horrible human beings. The list that I had up, not one of them, other than I would say Sam Altman, which is still a little undetermined, are decent human beings, right? They're sexual predators. Oftentimes they do drugs. They are not decent human beings. They don't give back to people. None of those people those Silicon Valley billionaires, none of them give back to charities. Like they're not giving people. There are different people like the Mark Cubans and the Bill Gates and so forth. They're a different breed of billionaires. You could say they should never have that much wealth, but at least they're using their wealth for giving it back to society. Where these particular Silicon Valley tech billionaires,
Yeah.
they are not givers at all. They are complete
Yeah.
takers. They take all the time.
Yeah, and maybe you can research this, and I'm gonna get off after this last statement. Thank you for allowing me to talk. I'm a newbie with your Instagram, but I was reading something a couple of days ago, and it had to do with the initiation of Social Security and how we arrived at that 20% gap where people are going to pay for that 20%. Because they could have devised it where Medicare would pay for 100%, like you said. A person puts in their work, does all this work for 50 years, 40 years, and then you pay into that bank of Medicare, right, and Social Security. Well, and I have to look up the quote, and the person that wrote a book, it was based on racism. Sorry, I'm going sort of off tangent, but how they arrived at that 20% gap, and it was this one individual that wrote this book. I believe it was Tendencies and something of the American Negro. Maybe not one word in the title, but I'll look it up and I'll DM it to you. And the purpose of that was based solely on racism, because they thought if they had individuals still having to come up with that 20% of your healthcare bill, that would affect Black people. But what they didn't realize, it's going to affect poor white people. It's going to affect everybody.
Yeah.
And it was based on racism.
Interesting. Here's something that someone didn't call me out, but they thought they were right. And actually, I was right. A few weeks ago, we were talking about Medicare for all. And this is important. So people think that Medicare for all, the government proposals of the past, would just mean that it would be the same as where Medicare is today, where you have to pay 20% and 80% is covered. That's actually not true. Medicaid for all, as it was proposed for everybody, was an expansion of Medicare where they would pay 100%. That's what those proposals are about. I actually did not know that until a few weeks ago either. So those of you that are watching, Medicare for all, some people say, well, I still have to pay 20% just like I do with my current healthcare provider, except that there's usually a deductible. That's actually not true. Medicare for all is meant to pay 100% of the services. That's how it was most of the time is being proposed and designed.
Yeah. So anyway, I will DM you that information. It's definitely interesting to see. In fact, I'm going to go and purchase that book or find that book and read it. And it was basically, that's how it was developed. And it ended up biting everybody, not just, Black folks. It was all of us, poor people.
Right.
And they're bringing us back to that current state if things go forward next year. So anyway, thank you once again.
Well, thanks for joining. I appreciate it. It looks like some people were able to hear you on TikTok, so that's good.
Okay.
It was a good experiment for me. So thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
I could hear. That was great. I just want to chime in just for a second, and then you can boot me off. Yes, back when they decided to do the 20%, they did know that but the poor white people would be affected, but they didn't care. They were also lynching poor white people, along with Black people were being lynched. So, like, we were in the same basket.
Yeah, underprivileged people, right? Basically, they're all underprivileged people. It tended to be more racist because there's more underprivileged people that, of course, are of minorities than they are, of course, white.
Yeah, that's why Trump wants to throw all the homeless people into camps. But I'm on Medicare, and this 20% is rising for me all the time. The Social Security, my check, they are now taking out $202 per month automatically just for my Medicare. And my supplement that I buy by 20% on, I just got a notice 2 days ago, and it's going up from 140 to 200. So for me, just to have Medicare, it's $400 a month. I mean, it's not Medicaid. Medicare is expensive. When you're on a fixed income like us seniors, it's a lot of money.
Well, let's hope that, a lot of people on the right are coming around to universal health care. I still think it needs to be, again, so I even used it wrong. Universal health care, I don't like that phrase. It's universal health care insurance. That's what it should be always referred to. And people should be recognizing that all we're trying to do is replace the insurance companies. But I know we got way off a topic, Nan, but I appreciate your thoughts on that.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Mr. Global, did you check if you could hear on Instagram? Could you hear people from TikTok on Instagram, or you didn't check?
I have my headphones in, so I didn't necessarily check to see.
You'd have to turn it down and then turn the other one up and so forth.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Any parting words for It's All Theater? Are you still there?
Yeah, sorry, I had a phone call come in and I got dropped off, but I'm back on, so I appreciate you letting me back in there. But I was curious, earlier you'd mentioned nuclear weapons being the biggest concern that you have for AI. So I'm curious what the trigger or the actual mechanism is of how AI would be used, in your opinion, for nuclear warfare.
Well, I didn't mention, I think someone else did, but nonetheless, it's interesting that if you know that the nuclear weapons systems are not connected to the internet, generally speaking. You think of how ridiculous it would have been if I think we would have had a war a long time ago because there would have been hacking into those systems and someone would have launched a nuke. The nuclear weapon systems still work on an analog system that are not connected to the launch controls anyway. So it's absurd to think about, right? We know we would never want nuclear weapons hooked up to the internet, to a network, because all networks can be hacked.
Yes, exactly. Just like our voting servers, as they're not supposed to be connected.
Right. And I get a lot of people talking about on voting, like we should go to online voting or vote for apps and stuff. And I'm always like, no, technology is not the solution to any of our problems. Not to any of our problems. To the majority of problems, keeping things simple and using regular voting that's not connected to a network is the way you keep it safe. And the same thing with nuclear weapons and in many aspects, right? Once you digitize anything onto a network, it will be hacked.
Correct. I mean, that's what we're fighting. We have teams that fight against about that on the daily, not even on the daily. Every 5 minutes, we have people protecting against humongous, infiltrations of all sorts of people online.
Yeah,
So
there are
I
a lot of
agree.
young people in particular that want to do voting like a direct democracy, which, by the way, we're not a direct democracy, so you'd have to change the Constitution. We are a representative democracy, but people think that, if we could just vote on every issue, that would be great. No, it wouldn't. First of all, direct democracy is not very efficient, and most people don't pay enough attention to what's happening. And if you had voting through digital systems, it would inevitably be hacked, and it would be a complete shit show. So you'd never want to do that. So those people, it makes sense. I understand theoretically that it's a nice to have, it's a nice idea, but these are not practical solutions. They don't solve the problem. They make the problems worse.
Correct. I agree. Do you think we should have single line items that Congress should vote on instead of these gigantic bills that are hundreds of pages long that are released 24 hours before they're actually supposed to vote on?
Yeah, I don't. I mentioned this. I shot that down a few weeks ago when someone asked, and Mr. Global here heard me shoot it down. I don't think it's the biggest issue of our time. It does make sense. I just think it's one of those symptoms of not having representative democracy that's working for the people, by the people. So it's one of those supplemental things that would be probably a nice to have, but it's at the end of the day, it's not even close to a core problem in my mind. It's sort of it would be nice to have like a lot of other things. Like I'm always promoting that we need to have a 28th Amendment that ensures that only elections can only be funded by individuals. And that alone solves 80 to 90% of our entire political problems with our political system. Single line item, single issue bills. Yeah, it's nice to have, but I don't know if it's anything that moves the needle, when you consider all the problems that we have in front of us.
I can see where you're coming from there. I get it. I support the 28th Amendment. I mean, that's the easiest way to get the money out of politics, which is our biggest problem, right?
Right. And we have a comment here from Batty Z33 says repeal Citizens United. So that's what a lot of people suggest we do. Yes, that would be nice. But Citizens United is not the only ruling that has, I talk about JFK Jr. a lot. And if he was alive, the ripple effects of him passing away in 1999, what that's had on our society. But he was already talking back then about the money in politics in 1999. That was well before 2010. So Citizens United is just a ruling. And if you have a ruling that repealed it, that wouldn't be enough. You still have a tremendous amount of flaws within the political system based on greed. So it would be nice, but it's almost like single line item bills. It would help, but it wouldn't, in our current state, it wouldn't cure everything. You'd have to have a 28th Amendment, or what Montana is doing. You'd have to have all 50 states try and do what Montana is doing with the Montana plan, which is suggesting that artificial entities, meaning corporations, LLCs, religious groups, anything that incorporates nonprofits, etc., at the state level, they could define those groups as not having any ability to involve themselves in elections. So, the Secretary of State of all the states dictate what a company is and is not, and what a company can and cannot do. So there's also the Montana plan that talks about, well, if we allow that corporations incorporated in Montana cannot influence elections, cannot contribute to elections, that would essentially repeal Citizens United, and it would most likely, it's hard to say, survive any Supreme Court rulings because they're changing, not that money is speech, they're actually changing what a corporation is and is not in that. But you'd have to have that in all 50 states, because if you only have that in one state, then corporations are just going to incorporate in another state. So Batty Z33, I'm going to throw up the, sounds like I'm going to throw up. No, I'm not going to throw up, but I'm going to throw up.
You're going to put up.
I'm going to put up. There you go. When I watch some of my videos, there's some words that I used and I'm like, man, why am I using those words? And it's just, that's the way we all speak. We have these tendencies and these habits.
Yeah.
Artificial entities. So I don't actually have it in front of me. I was going to display the 28th and 29th Amendment on the screen. No, don't have it there. All right, can't do it since I don't. Oh, actually, I can do it here. All right, so we talked about Mr. Global doing this topic in the past.
Yeah.
It's funny, out of all the topics we've done recently, the most popular topic we've done is the JFK one. Story time.
Oh, okay.
It's funny, we usually had about 120 to 150 people. Because obviously if we do MAGA hunting or liberal hunting, like everybody else does on TikTok, those obviously get more people as well.
And I don't understand how that's even allowed. How can you even put that as a heading? Like, right. Doesn't that insinuate something? I don't know.
It does, right? And but because it creates so much division and so much appeal and entertainment, maybe they turned a blind eye.
Wow.
Yeah, perhaps. I think. I mean, they've got to garner a lot of attention because people are so tribal right now, right? Everybody wants to set their heels in and defend their position. So I can see why they'd be popular, but I just don't see how they're helpful.
No, they're definitely not helping. But like all social media, like Zuckerberg and other people in the past, they don't give a shit about helping. They just care about views, right? So if you get enough views, then apparently it's okay.
Oh yeah.
The whole AI thing to me has always been kind of interesting. Like, we've talked about the nuclear thing. When things like this topic come up, something that's invented that's huge and could have a large impact on all of us, it seems like they just let it all come out at once, right? There's no control. There's no agency that studies how this could affect and say, okay, well, we can only do 1% implementation of AI per year until the population hits an equilibrium or whatever. Like, it seems like it's so not thought out, and they just let it happen. and they let the dominoes or the cards fall where they fall. And that seems very irresponsible.
Well, that's the point of government, right? You have not just Congress, but you used to have agencies. And listen, government has always been slow to react. So I'm not saying government was even close to perfect. But you would often have Congress set up committees, not just committees, but independent bodies to do research on things. But because we live in such a deregulated political system right now, and where neither the Republican Party or the Democratic Party will agree on anything, you're not getting those committees that are being formed, or those independent bodies being formed to investigate things. Like that's like the first thing that should have happened 3 or 4 years ago when ChatGPT came out. Is there should have been a rush to say, okay, we need to put together an independent body to investigate this and come to some conclusions. And with AI, it probably need to be done every year, right? You need to update on that every year and having some controls, but you don't have that in, we had a lot of that in the 70s and 80s with consumer protections within the government. But those things are remnants of the past right now.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
I,
yeah, go ahead.
I was going to agree 100%. We do need some regulation, but I feel like sometimes we can get to the other side where we're too regulated, and that's where a lot of the bureaucracy comes into place, where we're literally just paying the government to move things forward. So there's definitely a fine balance, and we're nowhere near it right now.
Good government, or
I live in California, and
sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say I live in California right now, and there's definitely a few things that, especially running businesses, where the regulations definitely do slow things down. But you need them in place in order to protect certain things as well. So I don't know. We need to get back to some balance. We're just not there.
Yeah. Well, I've always preached that we've all been manipulated into believing, or most people, government is the problem, not the solution. And with that basic premise, everybody thinks that government can't get anything done. Yes, regulations always come with some consequences that are not that we don't like, right? There's always negative consequences to any sort of regulation that you do. But you have to have that balance, like you said, and we're nowhere near that balance. And that's the whole point of having, like, even back when the Constitution was created or being created, when we had the first 10 amendments with the Bill of Rights, is a few states wouldn't ratify the Constitution because there were not enough states protections and there were not enough individual rights. So you had the anti-federalists, which sounds like a negative thing. They were anti-federalists. They were just massive federal government, or having complete control under the federal government. These anti-federalists were right. They wanted to make sure individuals and states had enough rights. And then you had the Federalists, which were also not evil. They wanted a strong federal government. But what came out of it was the Bill of Rights and the first 10 amendments. And that was the right way. It was this yin and this yang, this balance between too much control at the federal level and making sure individuals and states had enough control as well. And that's what the experiment of democracy is supposed to be. It's supposed to be this endless, never-ending balance between moving too far to the right, which is towards fascism, or too far to the left, which is moving towards communism. I mean, that is the point that people don't understand, is all people that are hardcore liberals or MAGA, they always want to get everything in their way. That's not winning. That is losing. Compromise is winning. And the best era of American history is probably from the end of World War II throughout the 1990s, because through that time, there was always great division, but there was also great compromise and advancement, whether it's the civil rights era and the voting rights era and what happened during Vietnam. There was a period of time where America, from 1945 to, let's say, through probably 2004, where America was always moving more and more to that, I don't like the saying, but a more perfect union. We were moving in that direction. We were never even close to perfect, but we were slightly, with each decade, becoming a little bit more to what the vision was supposed to be. And of course, over the past 20 years, we have not headed in that direction.
The thing that comes to my mind also with all of it is that the stock market and all of these companies, it seems like they've all kind of hit a plateau as far as providing, profits or improving their services or whatever. So a lot of these large mind, the people that are in the circles, right? They're like, the next phase is to implement AI across the board, and then there's going to be this huge boom in everyone's investments. And I don't know, it's hard to like gather all of the information to put it into a workable, sensible action plan. So
Yeah, at the end of the day, I equate it to maybe not a great analogy, but back to the Industrial Revolution, right? Where you had very, very wealthy people, very few of those, like we talked about, the Vanderbilts, the Carnegies, the Rockefellers, that were exploiting society and the workers. And the government stepped in and allowed unions came to be. And there was a mass unionization of the workforce to make sure that exploitation was minimized. You're having something similar today with they're going to talk into history about the Musk and Thiel and Zuckerberg and the Ellisons. They're going to, that's going to be maybe not in a favorable light, and they shouldn't be in a favorable light, but it's essentially very much the similar. There's a digital revolution or an AI revolution that's taking place, and very few people control it. And that is never a good thing because they don't ever put these, for whatever reason, these psychopaths or sociopaths, well, that's probably the reason because that's what they are. They don't put restrictions on them because they're playing their own game of keeping up with the Joneses. That's the game. How many yachts can I have? How much control can I have? How many hundreds of billions of dollars can I have? The circles that they're running in are all about materialism and control and power. It's all about ego. At the end of the day, it's all ego and greed, right? So that circle they're running in is just like, oh, well, Musk wants to be the richest person in the world. Well, Ellison wants to compete with him, and other people want to do it as well. So it's this keeping up with the Joneses at a whole different level of, what do you want to call the Joneses of the billionaire class?
I don't even know what name you would give them. I don't really know.
Right. In the past, we're keeping up with the Rockefellers. Now it's keeping up with what? What would you term the new generation?
I think that would be the ultimate feather in their cap, is whoever you refer to as the new billionaire class. That's who's got the power.
Oh,
There you go.
So let's maybe keep all their names out of our damn mouth, huh?
Yeah, right on.
Yeah.
But that's just like Trump wanting to put his name on everything, right? If you label it the Musks or the Bezos, I'd say Musk and Bezos are the two, like the Bezos generation. That would be
I've always found it. Yeah, go ahead.
that would always be the feather in their cap, right? Whoever gets that term.
They all came from the same area of the country, did they not?
Well, they all, the financing for all their companies comes out of Silicon Valley, right? So all the tech companies of the tech billionaires comes out of Silicon Valley. So they're all based out of Silicon Valley with like obviously Musk comes from South Africa. But if you're going to want to become, the likelihood of you becoming a billionaire in technology has to come out of Silicon Valley because that's the only place that will fund projects of scale that may not make any money for a long time.
So tracing the money back, if that's where they're getting the funding from, who are the individuals that are providing this funding for their endeavors?
Well, that would be capital from venture funds, right? And venture funds would be millions of people. It could be all of us. Well, it could be anyone with a net worth of over $1 million. They can enter into venture funds. So, venture capital is sort of like a farce in itself, right? But that's where, you could go to Austin, Texas, and people think, well, I can create $1 billion company, the next tech company out of Austin, Texas, or out of New York. No, not really, because those groups of people in those areas tend to value having a return on their investment much quicker. It's like if you're getting money out of New York, out of a venture fund out of New York, it's typically going to be around financing, marketing, or fashion. Those types of industries want returns quickly. also in Austin, Texas. So when people think, well, you can create a $1 billion company out of France or out of someone, not really, because when you're dealing with venture funds, they expect to have returns on investments. But Silicon Valley venture funds expect for 9 out of 10 companies to fail, but that one company that does succeed, they expect it to return, instead of 10 times the money back, they expect it to return hundreds of times their money back. And that is actually something that's very unique to Silicon Valley in particular, where that type of funding, and it's because you have universities like Stanford and Berkeley, where these young kids come out of college as in the past as engineers, and they want to create something like Uber. And Uber is like, well, how are you going to make money? And they're like, eventually we'll make money. Or Facebook is the better example, right? We're just going to capture a lot of eyeballs. How are you going to make money? Oh, we don't know. We won't worry about it. And Peter Thiel was the architect about that. He gave Mark Zuckerberg his first $100,000 from individually. He gave it to, and then of course later on through his venture fund. And they never really talked about or worried about how they were going to make money. They just knew they eventually would if they could dominate the market. And that's a ideology or a culture that typically only happens in Silicon Valley. Ask me how I know.
It seems like you might have some experience.
Yeah, but I wasn't the 20-year-old, 25-year-old, 20-year-old kid coming out of Berkeley. So that's also creates an issue. What's up, Marcus?
What's up, brother? And I would say this to add to what you're saying. I often ask in groups, try and name 30 billionaires, and you'd be surprised that in groups they can't name them. And I said, okay, and even when they do hit 30, I said, now name me the 1,000 behind them that I fear more than I fear the ones up in the front. The ones you don't know that are doing these things. I mean, it's there's a point where enough is enough money. I mean, Warren Buffett, yes, but you hear what he has to say about, like at some point you reach enough, and you got to stop working or whatever, and you don't have to stop working. But I worry more, of course, you know how I feel about Teal and
Yeah.
all of them. But the thing is, I worry way more, and it doesn't keep me awake at night, but I'll say it. It bothers me, late in the evening, of the billionaires that you don't know the names of from Silicon Valley that just, like you said earlier, just don't care. They just don't care.
Now, I also think it's important to point out, though, so, you most likely you never become a billionaire because you've played the game entirely fair. You've always taken advantage of the system to enrich yourself, all of those people. However, with that said, it is important to recognize that not all billionaires are created equal, just like any other class of people. Like you said, Buffett is one example, and there are dozens of examples. There's actually 400 people that are 100 millionaires or billionaires that back in 2019 signed a petition and sent it to, I guess, who was the president at the time? Was it Biden? That said, we want to pay more in taxes. There were 400 of them that said, we want to pay more in taxes, tax us. So people say we're attacking billionaire class. No, they're not all created equals. There's just like in regular society, there's a class of billionaires that are sociopaths and psychopaths and narcissists.
But there were a few of those from Silicon Valley. You pointed that out earlier.
That's true.
Where you talked about Mark Cuban and those guys. Those guys weren't from. There were like what 2-3 names on there from Silicon Valley. The rest of the 397 names were guys from New York and Texas and Florida.
That shows the difference between cultures, right? The Silicon Valley culture of this incredible desire for power and control, but most of those were PayPal mafia people, right? And then you just throw in Ellison, which also wasn't, Ellison was actually Silicon Valley, right? But it's a great point that people from New York or Austin or other places that had grounded in different types of values, they are not part of that group. And it's because their culture was different. Their upbringing was different. Their circle of people that they ran. And
I even see that. I even see that in a state like Alabama with my fellow 8-figure people. I mean, it's you see a difference between us and people from even Florida that have, realmed into the eight figure. It's like it's a keeping up with the Joneses every single time. When's enough enough? Like I've got my company up for sale right now. I'm ready to retire and call it a day and go enjoy myself, sit in the sun. There's a time when enough is enough.
Yeah, and I'd say most people probably have that, but like you said, there are hundreds of others that are probably that you don't know that have more nefarious goals for whatever reason.
And and I'll point out another thing. One thing I say a lot, because I would say I don't have any. Well, maybe my secretary, but I don't have a whole lot of employees that work for me that make less than 100,000. And I always explain to them, at $100,000, what are you more worried about? The $83 that you pay out of 100 grand that goes towards all these programs that you're talking about, SNAP and Medicaid and housing programs and what have you, WIC. Are you more mad about the $6,100 that goes towards supplement programs for T-Mobile, Tesla, Walmart? The subsidies that these guys are getting, and they're making billions of dollars. They don't need our tax dollars anymore.
Yeah, that was a good point. What is the, obviously Walmart in teaching their employees, not paying them just enough so that they could be on certain governmental benefits, right? And teaching them how to apply for those benefits as they're being hired, right? That's a subsidy, if you want to call it, or a manipulation of the system in order to,
And they do that with chicken plants too.
right?
They actually teach. If you go to a chicken plant in Alabama and you get your $9 an hour job, they actually have a office that helps get you on the SNAP and programs that you need to be on to help you live. Why not just pay them I mean, come on, man, you're the Koch brothers. You can certainly pay them $25 an hour. That's not what they're going to do. And look at the subsidies that Koch brothers have gotten over the last 20 years.
Yep. Well, many of the issues that, the hundreds of issues that we sort of try and bring to light on, but obviously there's so many issues and so many manipulations by the rich and powerful, and obviously out of unregulated corporations. Hey, Orwell, how are you?
Hey, TK. Hi, everybody. How's it going?
Good evening. I'm only going to be on for a few more minutes, but I figured I'll have you jump in. Any parting words? First words and parting words?
Yeah, that's perfect. I only had a few minutes. Yeah, so I heard you talking a minute ago about the, impending onslaught of AI and how that may be really great. Forgive me, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but what I was getting from that was that that's going to be great for business, but not so great for the people who are too poor to possibly, participate in the benefits of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think you didn't. I don't think I said those words like anywhere near like that. That would not be necessarily my opinion.
Okay, gotcha. I guess
Can I ask him to clarify something?
Yeah.
Are you talking about, like, here in Alabama, Katie Britt is pitching this big AI massive campus, right? And we're trying to figure out, where's the water going to come from to cool this thing, and where's the power going to come from for this thing? And and she's sitting here talking about it like it's going to bring a ton of money in and jobs, but there aren't really any jobs. There's like 40 jobs.
Right.
Like, it's not bringing in 20,000 jobs. So is that what you kind of meant, or did you mean like making money
Somewhat.
off of it?
No, so that is part of what I meant. I guess sort of like, and I'm sorry, I was distracted because I'm listening and I'm doing other things. But when I heard you talking about that, what I kind of thought about was, for all of the money that it might bring in, I would think it might not benefit the people who need the help the most. Which leads me to my real question to you, which is, do you feel like, am I living in the past as far as how I think of things economically? Because I tend to think, grow the middle class out so they can buy things, which helps the rich people who own companies, and maybe try and make it to where you don't really have a lower class so everybody can participate, everybody's driving the economy. Is that model just done with? Am I just a dinosaur in my thinking like that?
Marcus, you want to take that?
Yeah,
TK's like, I'm not
that's.
touching that.
I mean, the simplest answer I can
I'm
give you,
just
and
curious. Yeah.
I'm trying to get better at TikTok about giving a 30-second answer or 1 minute answer. And my simplest
Yeah.
answer to you is yes, because here's the
Gotcha.
simple thing. I mean, as easy as I can put it to you, we never tried to cap corporations on how much money they can make, and that has highly affected the gaps between the poorest, the middle class, and now there's not really a truly upper middle class anymore. You take a massive leap into wealth.
Right.
I mean, so yes, you are a dinosaur in that, and but you're. I mean, I look. We'd all love it to go back to that, but I mean,
Well, I guess
how do
my
we get there?
yeah, and I know you got to go. I guess my the crux of everything that I try and think about is how do you let our system continue to function as a capitalist um, entity, which it has done fairly successfully, I would say, and at the same time help people who need help. And I'm wondering, are those things really
Tax the
diametrically?
wealthy, tax the wealthiest, tax the biggest corporations, tax the billionaires. Don't come up with something like the big beautiful bill that gives them a massive break. I mean, what year was it? What was the last year, TK, that we saw where we were well balanced? What was it? Maybe 83 or 84, where we were well balanced because we were taxing the wealthiest. There weren't a whole lot of billionaires back then, but we were taxing pretty heavily the wealthiest. Or would you say it was more in the 70s?
I think it was the late 60s and 70s. Yeah, I think that was the right level of taxation was there. You know, people talk about
Yep.
what is a fair tax and the whole thing of that word fair, because people just try and think of it as too simplistic of a definition. Fair is different to how you're trying to apply it, right? When it comes to people think that I can make as much money as I want to and I earn that right. No, that's not how it works. The system that you are operating within the entire society is what is allowing you to become wealthy. So fairness is that system, this capitalistic system. It allows you to earn great wealth, but with that great wealth should come the responsibility to contribute more and more back. That is literally fair because that is the economic system that allowed you to become wealthy. You didn't become wealthy on your own. You're not some magical individual. You became wealthy off the backs of your employees, off the backs of the consumer, off the backs of the system that the government allowed you to succeed. So fairness is very different how we think about it as when we're adults versus when you think of fair when you're maybe 16 years old.
And I would say this, that works for the individuals that are getting wealthy. I got fairly wealthy myself, but I pay my fair share of taxes. Now let me say this, on the corporation side, you know, Lyndon Johnson said it really well actually Barry Goldwater had a really good version of that too. If we were to cap what a corporation could make, and I love Barry Goldwater's assertion, because back then, you know, like that was the years that we capped cruise ships on how much money they could do with gambling. How much money, if you've ever gone on a cruise ship, the cruise ship will tell you like the best time to go gamble is like at midnight on Sunday before it's docking at 6 a.m. in the morning on Monday, because they make everything, all the slots loose, and you win and you win and you win because they have to give back so much money. So if we did that with corporations, like Barry Goldwater explained in a simple way, and he said if we cap the corporations, then what happens is that corporation has to actually give more to the employees every single time. The minimum wage would go up because they would have to give you more money. They would have to give, and the unions, of course, along the way. But we don't have unions now in the United States. We've lost more unions than we've gained.
Well, yeah, you're breaking up a little bit, Marcus, so I'll just take over for a minute. And I don't know I haven't done enough research on it, but what has happened with the American corporation and the CEOs filling their boards with basically just sycophants, right? They're just yes people on the boards. allowing those executives and the CEOs to exploit their shareholders and their employees because there's no regulations on the American corporation when it comes to that facet. Like Elon Musk having a potential $1 trillion payout if he meets certain objectives. Like a lot of people think that capitalism, you shouldn't have government interference. Well, unregulated capitalism leads to complete destruction, right? There's nothing good that comes out of society with completely unregulated capitalism. So I'll let you add your camera. It's all theater. So anything you want to add to that or interject?
Oh yeah, no, I mean I agree 100%. This is the same reason that banks don't have an open vault policy, right?
Right.
Greed is going to corrupt everything at the end of the day. So I mean, you need to have
I'm going to borrow that if you don't mind. I'm going to borrow what you just
but
said.
I mean, not a problem. Yeah, not a problem at all. I mean, it's I've talked about this with various people that I've had economic discussions with in the past, and I borrowed it from somebody else. So feel free. That's not originally mine. But I live just outside Silicon Valley here, and I do speak. I'm a contractor, so I'm actually in a lot of these very, very wealthy people's homes. And when you're able to meet them, because you're not able to meet them often, but I always do try and pick their brains as much as I possibly can with some of these, loopholes that they have, or just ways that they actually use the system. And they're brilliant in how they're able to pad their pocketbooks, but I don't blame them for knowing the system or for using the system. I blame the system that we have in place, but unfortunately that was put in place by those exact people. So we got to find a way to get ourselves back to some normalcy.
Well, you also
28th
have
Amendment.
Yeah. Again, I don't blame him either for doing things legally. When you had 400 billionaires or 100 millionaires coming out saying we want to pay more in taxes, and then there was the ridiculous notion of people would say, well, they should just pay more taxes. Oh, shut the F up. You don't know what you're talking. You don't just give the government more money just voluntarily. There has to be a system in place. They were asking for that system. But the people that destroyed that system were the think tanks. I don't know the top of my head. I don't know, Marcus, if you know who they are. Like which groups, like today you have the Heritage Foundation and the Federalist Society doing through their fundraising efforts, through all types of dark money sources that are trying to tear down democracy. But back when these taxation laws were changed.
I would say this. Go look at God. I'm gonna let you say it because I'll get. You know what'll happen to me.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna say the World E Forum. Go look at that and go to the about page of it and take a very good look at who's on that list of who is the leaders of that, and that'll give you all the names of all the companies that you're talking. Every group that has done that.
Yeah, you can
They're all in there.
You can go through the Reagan administration and the Clinton administration and the Bush administration after that. During that 25-year period, there were many organizations that were actively manipulating our government, our elected officials, to reduce the taxation laws, right? To remove all types of laws and regulations related to taxes and other regulations on corporations and other aspects. I actually don't know who they are, but obviously we know that influence of money. None of this happened like one thing. Everybody thinks Citizens United was the thing that changed everything. No, it was like the last nail in the coffin in removing campaign finance restrictions. That was the last nail. Every one of these things has had many events and many rulings that have allowed those things to happen, like we currently have with taxation and removing consumer protections or financial protections. Like look at the crash of 2008 and no one went to jail for it, right? There were no regulations put in place to ensure that that type of too big to fail breakdown would never happen again. Those people clearly could have been put in jail for fraud, but they didn't. And after that, there was no further regulations put into place. And that's all because of the manipulation by those powerful people in our government.
Well, did you, Kurt and I were talking about this earlier because we were talking about he hasn't read it yet, 1925, which is same author as Too Big to Fail. And it explains it, where it began and where it is now.
Yeah, we're the largest economy in the world, but we're the only economy that has like a massive crash every 10 to 15 years. Like Canada's,
Exactly.
and that's all
We
because of
shouldn't have this
regulations.
going on. Exactly. Did you get a chance to look at that 1938 Enabling Act I told you about?
I did. It was 1933.
Oh, was it 33?
The 33. Right. When
Okay.
H Mr. Hitler was given basically unregulated powers over, and obviously it was always about blaming. It's always about blaming minorities, a certain minority, right? And in the case of Germany, it was obviously the Jews.
It's so similar to even what I was talking to one of the British over there about what Ferrer is doing. I mean, it's the same identical. It's just repeating itself over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Almost lockstep. Yeah. One or the other. Listen, I've got to run. TK, I appreciate you having me on. Very, very sharp, very intellectual conversation. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah. I appreciate you being here, and thanks for good to meet you.
I'm stealing your bank, so don't have open vaults comment, by the way.
Not a problem. It's a good one. Use it.
I like it. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Marcus. Bye.
All right, I'm having a problem. I don't know how I'm going to fix it with this multicast. I know everyone can join on their own at this point, but I'm trying to get back to a full screen and I can't seem to do it on my current setup. Anyway,
You're on full screen on mine.
I am taking up the entire screen.
Oh no. You're taking up a big section, and then you've got 2, 4, 6, 8 boxes next to you.
Right, and I don't know how to go back to full screen even when I have multiple guests. So anyway, if you're still watching this, I'm going to shut it down in a moment. I'm just going to try and play around with controls, but I've been doing that the whole time and I just can't figure out. Mr. Global, you remember how I used to have it just up the side, right? Where guests would come in on the side of the screen.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know how to control that anymore from a Mac.
Well, didn't they just recently change the format? I think I heard Scott saying that early this morning or yesterday morning. He said that the format has changed, and now you don't even know how to work it right.
Oh, interesting.
They had a massive update. Yeah, I heard TikTok
yeah.
had an update on the app and they've changed some things.
The problem on this view, even on this view, I like this view because people can just click the button to invite and then I just accept them, which is nice in a lot of ways. But the problem is when I put up graphics or I want to show screen shares and other things, then you can't see them large enough, right? So,
Gotcha.
So it's going to be a problem. I would like to go back to the other format.
TK, I'm going to say
green screen.
Night to you, and it's always a pleasure.
Ditto, man. Ditto.
I love your stuff, brother.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Marcus.
Take care, man. All right. Take care. Bye.
So even him would dropping out, I would expect you would go to a smaller. No, not really. Not in this current format. I just don't know what to do. Tabitha says mine won't even let me change mine right now. So when you're just even as a viewer, I'm not sure what you mean, Tabitha. Maybe bomb.
Looks like she's trying to come in. Oh, no, never mind.
Someone else was coming in. Can you accept guests as well now?
I can, yeah. I just sometimes I'm a little apprehensive because I don't want to mess up your flow or step on your toes.
No, you know what's going on. You get the gist of. If you're welcome to throw people in there. Obviously, just always be trigger ready to pop them out.
Yeah. That's the part I'm a little scared of.
If I'm on a different pane, then I don't see the guest requests the way it works on the Mac app. So I could be on changing the screens and I won't see a guest come in. So you can throw them in if you want to. Tabitha says no on her live. She can't even change so I can't either, Tabitha. I can't change the format.
Once you start, maybe like you pick one and then that's what it is for the live. You can't maybe change it in the middle of it, or I don't know.
Maybe. Would you drop out for a minute, Mr. Global, and then I'll tell you to jump back in. Let's see what happens. So introduction. All right. So I'm going to play around, try and change the layout. Oh, there it is. Yes, that worked. All right. Jump back in, Mr. Global. All right, I'm full only because you're out, and then I think I'm still going to be full now. Yes, there we go.
That was it.
That was it. Awesome. So I can't have any guests, and I can change the format, multi-guest format in the settings. So Tabitha, I don't know if that helps you, but well, I'm on a Mac app, so it has a change layout button. But once you're in, oh, actually, wait a minute. No, I think I can do it. I'm going to change it now. And you're back to full screen. Look at that. So now I can
That's
change
half
it.
for me.
That's half for you, but I think I can then reduce it. So I know those of you that are watching, we're pretty much done, but I'm just going to play around. So that's half for you. What happens if I do that? Nothing.
8.
Oh, that showed up 8. Okay, so there you go. That's 8. Oh, there we go. So I can minimize that, and then I can change layout. Oh, when a guest has been expanded, I'm going to try and change you again. Got it. Wow, that's peculiar. That's an interesting way of doing it. That's I'm not going to remember that. Okay.
All good. Well, I won't keep your time. I appreciate the opportunity, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Yeah, thanks for being here. I'm going to go back to a different format here in the future. I thought today's artificial intelligence one would get more, but that's where we're always experimenting. Good night, Tabitha. I'm going to do a quick, and I'll see you soon, Mr. Global. Thanks for joining.
You bet.
Let's see. All right, I'm going to do a little closing for the 14 people that are left.
I hear the British are...
One moment. Let's see this, because I think this one is just incredibly funny. Brave browser. All right, this is an SNL from a few weeks ago. Let's let it rip.
I hear the British are sending another 5,000 troops.
How will we ever win this war?
By remembering what we fight for.
General Washington.
Sit, please. We need your strength for the fight ahead. We fight for a country of our own, a new nation, where we choose our own laws.
Hear, hear.
Said, sir.
Choose our own leaders.
Yes, sir.
And choose our own systems of weights and measures.
Weights and measures, sir?
Yes. Yes, I dream of that one day. Our proud nation will measure weights in pounds, and that 2,000 pounds shall be called a ton.
And what will 1,000 pounds be called, sir?
Nothing. Because we will have no word for that.
Seems like we should have a word for 1,000 pounds, sir.
And yet we won't. Because we are free men. And we will be free to measure liquids in liters and milliliters. But not all liquids, only soda, wine, and alcohol.
Only those, sir.
Yes. Because for milk and paint, we will use gallons, pints, and quarts, God willing.
Okay. How many liters are in a gallon, sir?
Nobody knows.
And, sir, in this new country, what plans are there for men of color such as I?
Distance will be measured in inches, feet, yards, and miles. So 12 inches to a foot?
12 feet to a yard.
If it were only so simple. 3 feet to a yard.
And how many yards to a mile?
Nobody knows.
Okay, well, how many feet to a mile?
5,280, of course. It's a simple number that everyone will remember.
Let's confess, it feels a little complicated, sir. Why not use meters and kilometers?
We will, soldier. But only in certain unpopular sports like track and swimming. For popular sports like football, we will use yards.
Football, sir?
Yes. It's a sport where you throw a ball with your hands.
So in football, there is no kicking?
There's a little kicking. You kick the ball to get points.
How many points, sir?
Sometimes 1 and sometimes 3.
Very confused, sir.
Do not worry. For our new nation, we will have rulers with 2 sets of numbers, inches on one side.